It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Time for the Security Cocktail Hour. I'm Joe, representing North Jersey.
And I'm I don't know who I am. I'm Adam, representing Staten Island.
All right, that's good. So now we all know who we are. That's cool. So today, I got a little story for you, Adam.
Okay.
Check this out. So a few months ago, I think it was warm out, so it's but before that, at least 6 months ago, I'm hanging out at home, not doing very much, and I see there's some kind of commotion at the next door neighbor's house. There's a bunch of people outside. There's cops out there. There's something going on. I don't know what's happening. So, then I kind of ignore it. I'm nosy, but I ignore it, whatever. A little while later, there's a knock at the door, and there's a cop at the door. And I'm just like, oh, come on. I'm like thinking to myself, I hope this dude next door, I don't really know him. I'm like, I hope he doesn't have like people in the basement or something crazy like that, It ends up, the cop tells me, someone tried to break into his car sitting outside in the driveway. And we got a lot of car theft in my neighborhood. So whatever, not that surprising. I'm like, yeah, okay. He says he ran across my lawn. I'm like, well, okay, whatever. And he said, look, we don't know who it is. We didn't catch him. He goes, do you have any security cameras, that might have caught him? And I said, no. He goes, no. I'm like, no. And he says, like, okay, well, do you have like a doorbell camera, a Nest or something like that? I said, no, I don't have a doorbell. I got a regular doorbell. And he looked at me like I said I didn't have a phone, that I was like so backward and this was so ridiculous. Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I guess, I'd help you out if I could. What I'm like, but I just don't have cameras ringing the house. I'm not a big fan of the whole home surveillance thing and cameras and everything. I'm a big fan of securing your home network. You got to do that. You got to secure your stuff. But, the whole surveillance and electronic locks and all that stuff, not my favorite thing. Now, Adam, I know that you feel very differently than I do. You're into this stuff.
So let me tell you something. Joe, I have a story for you. And my story is I live in Staten Island. And in Staten Island, yeah, Staten Island. I know it's really kind of like part of New Jersey, but let's not tell anybody that.
It's like New Jersey, just cooler, right?
Cooler, and we have turkeys. And
turkeys, all right.
So I've gotten more than once knocks on my door, right? One time it was detectives asking me about, can we see your video surveillance system? And I'm like, which one? Like, what do you mean, which one?
Which one?
I go, well, I have a legacy system, and I have a whole string of Nest doorbells. So it turns out 3 different things have happened on my block. 1, 2 sets of teenage kids came over and took bats to one of my neighbor's cars, which I won't go into that story deeper. 2, unfortunately, my next door neighbor's child, child, I'm going to say child, is their son, which was closer to my age, passed away, had an overdose. And also, a bunch of kids were walking down the block, or young adults, opening car doors. So I've had multiple times where police officers have asked for video footage. It's a good thing.
And just so everyone knows, you live in a, we joke about things, but you live in a pretty nice neighborhood, right?
Well,
it's not
I hope so. Anything, right? I mean, Pete Davidson, his mother lives in my same zip code. I know Kim Kardashian has gone to a restaurant in my zip code. So I think
Pete Davidson, right?
Well, I guess Kim Kardashian might have been slumming a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't even be saying that. But in all seriousness, we do have some celebrities living here, but it's a pretty nice neighborhood. But the point I guess I'm making is video surveillance systems can be really good. It can help protect your house, but it can also put you in some legal jeopardy, right? Sometimes you're filming things you might necessarily don't want to get involved in, and then you have to take time off and bring that. But with having video surveillance systems also comes a big responsibility on how to secure them. And I'm not just talking about
Well,
securing
that's
them.
the
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, well, that's the thing too, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Is whether it's your regular home network, because everyone has a home network now, everyone's got a router or something, or if you're going to do something more sophisticated with all this stuff, you got to secure it. It's on you, you know.
Absolutely. So, you know, having Nest doorbells has its plus and minuses, right? It's a nice little compact, on-premise device that builds a tunnel out and delivers your video to their third party, or not third party, their back end servers. Um, I don't know how to access them, but they're IoT devices, right? And if the people, the threat actors, know how to access those devices themselves individually, it's bad. But it's even worse if they're able to get into your account. If they can get into your account, they can download the video and the information and the data and the meta stuff, and really understand what you're doing. And God forbid you're walking around and you're not clothed, they can try to do like a sexploitation uh, TTP where they tell you to give them money or they're going to release you in your underwear. I don't know who'd want to release pictures of me in my underwear, but they're going to release your pictures in your underwear. And God forbid you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You bring somebody into the house you shouldn't be, and you're married, and they're going to use that video to blackmail you. And believe it or not, it's been done before. And then the other side is if you have on premise equipment and you have like your own network video recorder and it's a Linux device and you NAT it or make it accessible out to the internet to people who have a username and password, and then somebody exercises a vulnerability on that device, they can pretty much get free reign to your network. So yeah, there's issues, right?
All right. Well let's break it down. Let's take this in pieces because there's a lot to get to here. So let's start with the most basic, which is you got these things, you're buying them, you're putting them on your network, you're putting these devices on your network, and they come from wherever they come from. And everyone should know we talk about IoT devices. That's the Internet of Things, and it's where they're not regular computers. It's not like a desktop or a laptop. I mean, it is a computer, but it's a specialized one. It's little. You know it's got a very specialized function, and it's built to do just that.
Think Raspberry
But
Pi. Think Raspberry Pi. And Raspberry Pi is actually pretty secure. Think, embedded Linux devices. Think about things
well,
like
the
that.
thing is, it can be secure, because a lot of these things do in fact run Linux, like a version of embedded Linux, something very, very stripped down, like the Raspberry Pi version, the ARM. It's the ARM version of it. But the question is, it comes down to the ones you're buying it from this hardware. They adapted Linux to run on it. When it comes to security, did they do a good job? Just because you're buying something that's got a label on it says use this for home security doesn't mean it's been built very securely. It's still software. It can still have vulnerabilities. It can still have stupid decisions that were made, especially to make it cheap.
You know what? I got a story for you. I'll tell you a really quick story.
All right.
One of my neighbors where I live on my block asked me to help his friend out, lifelong friend. I guess he went through a bitter divorce and he had, uh, I believe it was the Huawei NVR network video recorder, right? And we already know that Huawei um, is not really good. Supposedly, it does reporting back to uh, a country, right? But he is a
Well,
funny
the
one.
government wants you to think that if you're using that, all your data is getting shipped right to China, which may or may not be true, or somewhere in between. I don't know.
So I got a funny story about that, right? So not only is it an
You got a
organization,
story within a story.
I do. Not
It's like you're
only,
breaking the fourth wall within the fourth wall. This is very sophisticated.
yeah, I know it's almost recursive. So
All right.
so I said, so the guy comes to me, goes, oh, I don't have access to my username and password. How do I get that? I'm like, yeah, well, I'll take care of it. So 14 hours later, I found a way to get a copy of the hash. And I say kind of hash. It's not really a hash. It's a string. And I took the string and I found a third party online website that actually converted, because it was a hash. You really can't convert it. But I found a third party website that reversed it into a password. and I was able to get access to the device. But here's the funny part about it. When I went to Huawei and I told them the model number and the device, they said that's an illegal copy of our hardware. We never manufactured that device. So not only do we have,
Really?
yeah, so not only do we have to worry about devices that send data back, possibly, and report back, but it was actually, what do you want to call it, spoofed or copied or emulated
It's
or
a counterfeit.
a
Yeah.
knockoff, a counterfeit of a company that we don't even necessarily trust. So I got to
Well,
work. Yeah.
that's really important because there's a couple things with that. The first is if you got to, it may be something malicious where they're copying them, and that can happen not just to Huawei. It can happen. I think it's Huawei too. It can happen to anyone, clones and stuff. But even if it's not, if you're buying this counterfeit stuff, it may not be exactly right. It may not be up to spec, and you're probably not getting, like, when there are vulnerabilities, you're probably not getting updates for it. I mean, it's a
No,
big issue
no
with
doubt.
getting updates from the legit ones, much
I
less from a
know.
fake one. Good luck.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. So then my point, I guess, is that I gave you a story and a story. But even if you
Yeah. What's
decide
the
you
other
get a
story?
nice legitimate, you get a nice legitimate network video recorder, it's the top of the line, it's supported, it's a great company, it does updates every single day, twice on Sundays. You put it on your network, and then poof, right? All of a sudden now it's natted to the outside, which means that if somebody is able to use a vulnerability or get access to the device, they might be able to create a connection outwardly to maybe a DNS server and exfiltrate data from your network. So what do, right? What do you do?
Okay,
Do
well,
you
hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. You're using a lot of big words there. Remember, we got to explain this stuff.
okay?
So NAT is, so everyone knows, network address translation. That's just something where on your home network, it's what virtually everything you do, your router, everything uses to basically get out, be able to get anywhere. And it has to do with how networking works. It's how you can have more than one machine on your network when when your router only gets one address from your ISP or your cable company or whatever. So that's what NAT is. And then data exfiltration is a very fancy $5 word security people use for stealing your data, getting it from your network out somewhere else.
So I take exception to one of those definitions. It's not a $5 word; it's a $10 word.
$10 word?
But
All right. I'll give you
so
$5.
so you're right? Let me translate this to like modern day, right? You go to somebody's house and you only have one door in, but meanwhile you have multiple rooms within that house and everyone exits the same door. So each room is basically its own IP address, and then you're going out the home address, which is your postal address, if that makes sense. If
Right.
you want to use your
Now,
door as one of the we talk about NAT. NAT means you're converting a port to be accessible to outside. So imagine your windows and your doors and anything else is another opening into your same address. So
right.
and the
Well,
point I
now
mean to
what that,
yeah,
I just got to do a little more explaining because it makes me
yes,
feel good.
sure,
One of the things to keep in mind is that that NAT, it makes it harder. That's not firewalling by itself, but it makes it harder for someone to reach inside your network and attack you because it basically is as simple as if someone is just coming into that one door and wants to hit one of your devices, it doesn't know which one to go to because there's all of them and it's rigged so it can't do it. Now there are some ways around that, but one of the big ways around it that Adam was talking about was if you have a machine that then makes a connection outward. So you go to a website or something, and you have that connection there. So you make the connection out and it connects there. It's possible that if you connect to something malicious, they then can connect back to you. And that's bad because
yes,
then they got to weigh in and then they'll do something. Here's another. I'm going to call this a $15 security word. They try to
oh,
establish persistence, which means they'll drop a little thing on your computer, your device, whatever it is, that will have it reach out to them because it can reach out all the time. And that's how networks get compromised. So
The old reverse
That's true.
Shellarooey.
That's right. The old shell. Anyway, so these are some of the things we're working on. And when you got things like this that are maybe don't have the best security in the world, don't get that monthly update like Windows does. You gotta think about that a little bit.
So I'm going to get to this part, right? So, you know, and this sounds like another, like one of those, I guess, $4.50 words. We created DMZ. And what is a DMZ? A DMZ is known as a demilitarized zone, but let's talk airports. When you go into an airport and you want to go board a plane, you have to go through security. And when you go through security, you're considered on the outside of the secure zone. That's your internet. When you go through the metal detectors, you're kind of in the DMZ. You're in between the inside and the outside. And when you finally pass through the metal detectors and you're on the inside and you have free reign to walk around on that side, that's the inside. So what I propose is, and it's a little bit hard for most, average people, is you create a DMZ on your network. That means not only do you have a firewall that connects to the internet into your inside, but you create this other network where it's in between. So if you put your network video recorder there, you have to create something called access list, which means that when they come from outside the internet to your network video recorder, it can only access that. And then you create another access list or another rule that says only the network video recorder can connect to certain machines on one port, which limits the possibility, should your network get compromised, they can't get everywhere. Does that sound like a good explanation?
Well, yeah, that's good. I mean, what we're talking about here, this is going to sound familiar to people who know a bit about it, but what we're talking about here is leveraging something called isolation, and in fact, this DMZ trick, this is how websites have worked for years. Basically, you have different components, different pieces of the software and what you're talking to out on the internet, isolated. So if you break one, you can't get into everything else. So, and that's something that's a really, really common trick when you have when you have something you don't trust. You're like, we don't trust it, but we got to use. The boss says we got to buy this. It's business critical. We're going to die if we don't get this thing. Well, you don't trust it. You isolate it. You put it in a network, and not a real physical network, but what's called a virtual network, where your network software just isolates it, makes it so it can't talk to anything else. So it's very limited what it can talk to. So if it does get popped, as we say, if someone gets into it, it's compromised. Yes, that machine is compromised. Everything it has access to and it can do, someone else can have control of. But maybe all your other stuff, your other equipment on the network, and for a home thing, your Xbox and your PCs with your files and your kids' stuff and all that kind of thing, or even other pieces of your other Nest cameras or something. Those are all okay. Those can't be affected. That's the idea. Now, this used to be the realm of just security guys and enterprise stuff. But now, Adam, more and more consumer grade devices are now supporting this and making this realistic for the home user.
Because people don't want to get popped, and they don't want to, say, I don't want to buy.
You don't want to get popped, man. You do not want to get popped.
So, can I scare everybody? Please, please, please.
Oh, we got, we're not supposed to do security through fear, but you got to say some scary stuff. I mean,
Well, security through obscurity, right? So, anyway.
Or at least something. Well, our tagline is you might need a drink for this. So give us something you need a drink for after you hear it.
A lot, I don't want to stereotype this, but I don't want to say most, but a lot of the routers that you buy for your home have something called UPnP. And it's pretty much universal plug and play, which means when you connect.
Oh, I thought that was the United Paramount network. Didn't they fold like in the 90s?
Yeah, they did, but maybe they stole from that. So UPnP allows any device that you plug into your network to kind of create a direct connection out to your internet by bypassing your NAT in a sense. It creates its own kind of NAT. So what you don't want to do is put your device directly accessible on the internet. And if you have UPnP on, you're pretty much doing that. So I'm going to read like a little tagline. UPnP possesses serious security risks since it's built into many new devices. Even unverified ones can connect it to your network. If a device is infected with malware, it can bypass security restrictions and affect other devices on your network. So I would turn
That's bad.
UPnP off. People use it for gaming, and I understand why, but I would not use UPnP. I would not use it. I
Okay,
don't
well,
see
if
a proper
we'll
reason.
put it this way, if you turn it off, the question on everyone's mind is if you turn it off, what's going to break? Because that's always what happens. You put security on, things break. What's going to break?
I don't think anything's going to break unless you're like my son who wants to host his own server to play certain video games. And that's kind of why I bought, sorry, I shouldn't say I bought. I was kind enough to get a firewall from a friend of ours. And
Well,
yeah,
well, you're right. If you are hosting, if you have people coming into your network, if you're hosting like a gaming server, a file server, for your own stuff or whatever, you really should have that level of isolation. And for God's sake, don't do it just from your PC. Oh,
and that's what people are doing. And that's exactly what UPnP does. It creates a connection directly out to the internet where if you gave the port number, somebody can connect to your IP address 1.2.3.4 forward slash whatever colons. I'm sorry, 67 23, which is your port that's been added outside, and that's not good. So if somebody's doing his regular scans and they're looking for open ports and they see 443 open, which is your your sharing on your machine, they can literally drop or deposit a file or take your files without even really doing exfiltration. They're literally copying it. So it's not good.
okay. That brings up another thing. I got a story to tell now.
Uh oh.
Many stories. I used to regularly get asked when uh, being audited. You got all these auditors. They want to make sure you're doing things securely, whether it's a customer or a regulatory agency, whoever. They audit you and you're the security guy, and they say, "When is the last time you were attacked?" I love and hate that question at the same
You
time.
mean a security standpoint, or like you're walking in the street?
Security standpoint, not
Oh,
walking in
I
the
was wanting to know. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, now they say, when's the last time you had a security attack? And I just look at him, and I look at him like the cop looked at me when I said I don't have cameras, and I go, "What are you talking about? We're attacked constantly. We're getting attacked now." And the bad news is that's not just true if you're a corporation or anything. If you got a router there out on the internet, you are being scanned and effectively attacked
Regularly.
constantly. That's right. Like I was saying in a previous podcast, well, this thing is occurring at at industrial scale. If you got a router that's got a mistake on it, or that's got a vulnerability, or that's got something, I hate to deliver the bad news because I know a lot of people are not totally equipped to deal with this kind of stuff. But the reality is the bad guys will absolutely find it, and the truth is within even minutes. I mean, I don't even know what the latest stats are. That they're like an unpatched machine gets discovered in like I don't know 3 minutes or something like that. It's like totally out of hand. So you need to for that front door kind of, especially your router, even if you don't have the fanciest thing in the world, you need to secure it. And if you have a situation where say you're hosting a gaming server and something's hitting it, you got to have that machine patched. You got to have it configured. If it comes out with if there's a vulnerability released, you got to patch it. Guess what? If you're doing that kind of stuff, you're now a security administrator, like it or not.
So, you know, we talk about constant scanning, and there was more. So I don't want to get into politics, but I will bring up an incident. When Hillary Clinton, hosted the software in her network, on her own home machine, a home network, or whatever you want to call her network from her house. Um, I'm looking at the reference to Wikipedia. It said in 2012, a hacker in Serbia scanned Clinton's server twice. And it says that there was repeated intrusions, according to her own monitoring software, originating in Germany, China, and South Korea. So, and then their threat monitoring software also on the server blocked it at
Yeah.
least 5 times. So the point I'm making is
That's all. Yeah.
you're always being scanned, and this reminded me about how easy it was to scan and look at servers. Not only that, but unfortunately, that server was also open to the internet with RDP. So if you're
That's very
gonna,
bad.
and the point again I'm making is UPnP, if your services are on like RDP, which is remote desktop, your services are on like printing, your services are on like, which is 9100, the port. People can effectively utilize those ports and either traverse, or meaning connect to your machine and go to other machines, or they can use those services to take advantage of your machine. So
Yeah.
that's why you got to be really careful what you host on your home network.
Yeah. Okay. So we hit the doom and gloom. Now we got to do something actually useful. What do you do about this? Some of this
I like
stuff?
when people get doom and gloom because they think about it.
Well, I think about it, but we need to. We're here to help people out. I'm an altruist, didn't you know that? I'm not an effective altruist. I'm just an altruist. But
I'm a pessimist. Does that help?
well, that's something else. Anyway, so look,
I'm joking.
you got a router, right? A couple things you should do it basically, even if you're not hosting something. Please keep it up to date. Everything usually has a firmware update. Check it occasionally, or put it on automatic. Make sure you got that. The default, there's probably a default password on it, and it counts. Please change it. Change it to something good. Change it to something long, complicated, incomprehensible. Not I like sex.
And don't forget it. And don't forget it either. But wait. Let's step.
Well,
let's go one step
what else?
closer to the internet. Not only should you change your default router password and username at home, but you should also consider, if it's not integrated, changing your default username and password on the cable company's supply.
Oh, that's true. If you can do that, that's a good thing to do. Yeah. Okay. The other thing on the router is there are services, and we'll have to put in some links where you can scan it yourself. If you want to get really fancy, you can go and get the software, which, by the way, the software to do the scanning's been out there for years. It's open source. It's pretty easy. But there are also websites where you can say, like, scan my network. You figure out your IP address. It'll scan you. And if you see stuff on there that either you think it's not supposed to be there, or you don't know what the hell it is, that's not good. You want to work on turning that off or figure out what it is. Because you may not know what it is, but the bad guys do.
Here?
What's that?
So
commercial. No commercials.
Right? Security Cocktail Hour. Yeah, Security Cocktail Hour can scan your network as part of a service. With that service, we can scan as long as you provide multiple amounts of drinks to the parties of part of Security Cocktail Hour.
It's what? It's one cocktail per scan. Yeah.
Per IP.
And we'll do a whole network, but it's got to be a call brand, I guess.
Do we do it from the bar? Is that where we do it?
Well, you need to be coming. You need to be coming from the outside, not from the inside, from a random location on the internet. So bar is perfect, right?
But I'll tell you this: we will also order. We will provide enhanced services if the outside is picked by a location from you that's near a beach, water, and other tropical. I don't know.
That's right.
So if you provide tickets for us, we'll do it even.
That's right. The better the weather, the more effective the scan. That's a scientific and engineering thing.
That was a better way of saying it.
Well, I see. You got to work on our marketing, I guess. But no, but it's really not hard. It's stuff you can do yourself, and but we can help. Okay, so that's talking about your router. Your things internally, you might want to separate things internally. And again, a lot of these devices, like we were saying, they're not all of the highest quality in general, and especially when it comes to security. So try to do some research on that too before buying. It's a good thing to do. Then you got the next piece, which is okay. Say your network is secure, or at least you are adequately mitigating the risks to suit your needs. Because we don't talk about just being secure, but you're doing a good job securing your home network. Now, typically with these cameras and all this stuff and all these controls and your washing machine and everything, it's going to be talking out to the cloud, to something on the internet, to a service. That's what
Okay,
you
I
know
know where you're
exactly what
getting
I'm.
at. You don't want people to know how many. No, no, you don't want people to know how many. How many beers and milk you have in your refrigerator, because that will tell you. It'll give it up right away. Is that what you're talking about?
Uh,
No.
well, hey, you know what? It could be. Can you imagine if they see something like you have unhealthy food in your refrigerator and they like raise your insurance or something? I'm telling you, that's coming. That's coming. It's getting out there.
It's
You know,
discoverable.
you
I don't.
you
I'm
talk.
going to take a lucky guess and say no. You don't. You weren't talking about the contents of your refrigerator or how much dirty laundry you have. You weren't worried about Zigbee or Bluetooth or like that, right? That's where I thought you were going.
Not so much that. Actually, let's get to the stuff that you were talking about, the really nasty stuff. You got all these recordings of your house. You got recordings of your house. You get all these cameras. You get this system. You get this in your yard where your kids are playing and your neighborhood and everything. And you bought all the stuff, and they said, "Gee, it's easy. Just plug it in and sign up for an account on our service, and we'll take care of everything." You say it's wonderful. Well, that's just great, as long as no one else can get into it, and as long as you trust the people you're sending all this stuff to. And that is the sticky part. All
I got
right,
another
another
story.
story. You're killing it.
I'll make it really quick. I don't want to. So one of the companies that services my family, I want to be very careful because it
I
can be
don't want
very
to know
easily
how your
figured
family
out.
is being serviced, but
Um,
anyway.
no, no, no. So this person came to me. He said, "Adam, I know you do cybersecurity. I have a question. When I walk in my house, I have one of those cameras on the inside that you put on your table. I use it to watch my kids and everything. And when I walk in, the camera literally is following me back and forth. I think somebody has access to my camera system. So this goes back to episode 1. If you're using a username and password in the same username and password to access all of your accounts, and then somebody has the username and password to your surveillance system, and they're using a script to discover everything under your email address, you're going to give access to a threat actor to your video and your audio, whatever else you're recording. So please be very conscious of what a username and password you
Well,
use, and that you use different username and passwords and multi-factor authentication for any of your cloud-based
oh
hosted
yeah, well,
surveillance systems.
like we were saying
I
in that, you want to use two-factor authentication or a hardware token to protect the accounts that are for really sensitive stuff. This is in that category. I mean, this is the video of your house, the inside of your house. Often, I personally, I mean, I probably wouldn't buy one anyway, but I would not buy one that did not have at least good two-factor authentication, if not a hardware token protecting it.
Thankfully I don't have cameras on the inside of my house. I only do the outside. I'm really dead set against it because once that video is saved on a server,
No,
it's
that's
never going away. So, so if a threat actor or somebody, let's say you're an elected official, let's say you're somebody in a position of power, and you have these people that want to really embarrass you, whether it's whatever organization is out there that's doing, hacktivism or activism or whatever you want to call it these days, and they want to get your video, they're going to go get it and they're going to put it on the internet. Um, if they really want it bad enough, they probably could. And people have dumped videos about celebrities on the internet from those type of devices. So be very careful. But that being said, um, I wanted to cover something else, but I don't know if we're done on this subject yet.
Well, this is one of those things I can rant on for a long time. But so what do you got next? Let's keep it moving.
So part of the surveillance systems is also being able to control your garage
Oh yeah,
doors,
absolutely.
being able to control your front doors, and that again, it. So there's two ways, there's multiple ways to control stuff, right? But one of the things that's often used to control your devices, either through home automation, surveillance, security, is your cell phone. Make sure you secure your cell phone because if your cell phone is lost and they see the number and it's open and they have your address and you have an application on there and they open your application, they're going to be able to open your doors, your garage, and everything else. Be very careful. But that goes also to the door. Like I'm not going to lie, I do use Nest products and I do use the keyboard or the numbers to open the door. But I have multiple layers of security that also protects me. That tells me if somebody's entering my house. So thankfully, I had that too. But there's no multi-factor authentication, at least that I'm aware of, what by using your keypad to enter your house. So be very careful, and also, where possible, don't share your four-digit code with anybody else because it's like one of those things about secrets, right? If you tell somebody a secret, is that secret kept? What happens if your kid writes it down on a piece of paper? What happens if that your child tells somebody else because they're coming over to visit? You got to be really careful with your keypad and your numerical passwords.
Yeah, you definitely want to be careful with who you give your, passwords to your house if you got keypads and things like that. But, it's interesting. They can be a good thing when you switch to electronic stuff like that. One of the things that we do in the enterprise is, it's good when you got something like that. Instead of having one key and you give copies or one number, we can give, like a different number, basically a different key for everyone, and get a different, and then get a log too, so we know who's used it. And then if people leave or you don't want to give them access anymore, you can revoke that and say that doesn't work anymore. That's like essential for corporations. For personal use, it's a little complicated. Maybe one day things will support that, but it kind of gets to, again, if you're going to have that capability, it's nice, but then you got to manage it. You got to make sure that when someone's out of your life, or that, I don't know, guest leaves, or you come back from vacation and the guy you gave access to, you don't need him anymore, you got to revoke that, and that gets tricky. But it does have some real benefits too. In particular, if you're like, giving someone a key, yeah, you can take it back, but you can know they didn't copy it. Or if they copied it, if it's revoked, it doesn't matter. So that's a good thing to have. Even electronic devices can be copied, can be cloned if they're not made correctly. Things like a garage door opener. You'd be surprised.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm dying to bring this up. If Flipper Zero, the manufacturers of Flipper Zero, are listening to this, please send me a Flipper Zero because I want to be able to test it on my security products. Flipper Zero is a big hacking tool, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is people buy Flipper Zeros and they listen for your garage door signal, your car doors, and everything else, and they can open and start your cars. So the point I'm making is that it's almost like now hacking has become almost like a toy. If you look at the Flipper Zero, it looks literally like a toy. And that sophisticated piece of equipment can open your doors, can open your garage door, and even start your car based on the model and make of your car if it has that vulnerability. So, I'm kind of like, sourcing free stuff. Don't tell anybody, Joe. But at the same time, I want people to be aware that are listening to this podcast is that there's plenty of devices that can emulate your security products and exercise vulnerabilities or replays to replay your signal and open your door, your car, and other things. So be careful.
Well, that's a ray of sunshine. You can't just be freaking everyone out.
I just did.
Okay, then we got to play a little good cop, bad cop here, or like, I don't know, depressing cop and slightly less depressing cop.
Which one am I?
At this point, you're the extra depressing cop. So let's get into this a little bit. There are a lot of different things that can be used to hack into stuff with radios, like a key fob or a garage door opener or something. The Flipper Zero Adam was talking about, that's this little device. It's basically a little radio, and it'll record radio systems, play them back, and do a bunch of other things they can use to, to copy what a particular device is doing if it's based on radio. It does a lot of cool stuff actually, but whether it works a lot depends on what you're attacking. Like a lot of older garage door openers say they're pretty simple. They just have like one signal opens them up, or maybe they got some old dip switches, little things where you can set a different code, but there's only a certain number of them. So recording that and playing it back, pretty easy. The newer ones are more sophisticated, and they got a little more complicated protocol that's not so easy to reproduce. It can be possible, but it really depends on the sophistication of the thing. And one of the things you got to remember with these home devices that makes them something you got to keep an eye on and think about is that you buy them, they last for years, they last a really long time. In the world of security and electronics and computers, and it moves much faster. So that garage door opener that you got that maybe had the state of the art security, may not be so good in a few years. They figure out how to crack it. Same thing with your car. Cars last a long time. If you got a 10 to 15-year-old car, which is totally viable, you know what? It may have a key fob where you got to worry about someone capturing it. That these guys have figured out how to do it. There are guys who specialize in cracking this, just like they specialize in hacking computers.
And this goes back to the whole thing about updating firmware. Guess what? Your car does have the ability to download and upgrade the latest firmware, and people are upgrading their latest firmware to combat against these devices. So you'll be surprised if you don't. You can go to your console, your entertainment center, if you have a car that has one, and look at it, and there might be a button to download the firmware over the built-in radio, or really, it's really like a cell card, and you can download it, and it does it automatically, or you can speak to your dealer. But I would probably Google whether or not is latest firmware for your car. But I'd be willing to bet you your firmware in your car has not been upgraded.
Yeah, so listen to this. My wife's got a fairly new car. It's a 2020, and it's got all the latest whiz-bang electronics in it. It's really nice when it works. But it's got like all these little glitches. It's got all these little things that go on with it. I mean, it's got this thing where the door locks stop working and glitching out. And then we take it to the dealer, and they update the firmware, they do something, they fix it, and then I drive it home, and a couple weeks later, it's back. And it's, and this has been going on for like 2.5 years. These things, the software in these cars, it is complicated, and they don't have a handle on it. And if they don't have a handle on what the locks can work and some of the other things, the security of them, I don't have a lot of confidence.
Well, and that's another episode where.
Oh yeah, you better believe it.
Well, yeah, just letting you know the IoT devices, what tales they're telling on you that you don't want them to say. Whether it's your health information, whether your car's telling everybody where you're going. It's not just your Easy Pass. There's certain things about your car that does telemetry that will report your distance, your speed. Your car computer will tell you whether you brake or not. And that's why these insurance companies want to install third-party apps on your phone, because your phone can also tell what you do and what your habits are. Crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, these cars even got cameras on the inside now. Some of them, I know some of them for like, like the self-driving thing. It'll make sure you're awake. But they got videos of people picking their nose. I mean, just wait until that stuff gets hacked. It starts popping up on YouTube. I definitely don't want to see that.
How about the cars that have Alexa built in? The cars that have Alexa built in.
Yeah, Alexa, empty my bank account.
Alexa, open my garage.
Yeah.
Alexa, tell my wife I'm home. Oh my God, my child's Alexa.
Well, we are getting to the end of the road here. Adam, last call. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I wish I was in a tropical place, but I don't think that's part of the show. Look, at the end of the day,
we'll have to do this from someplace warmer.
Look, so I want to say a couple of really quick things. One, look, if you have ideas or if you want to give us feedback about what we discussed, or you want us to elaborate more on this topic, let us know.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. It'll have in the description how to reach out to us.
And number two, if you do have questions about more of this, in addition, we can probably do a little quick episode, or at the end of another episode, answer some of these questions. But I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about video surveillance and IoT devices on your home network, whether it's scary or not. And as scary as it is, and I'm a cybersecurity practitioner, I do have it. Whereas Joe is on the other side, he's a cybersecurity practitioner and he doesn't want it at all. It's really about your culture, how you feel comfortable, and what you're doing to mitigate your risks. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm like the doctor who doesn't want to go to the doctor because he knows everything that can go wrong. All right, so that's it for today. Adam, as always, it's a pleasure doing this with you.
Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure not only to discuss this with you, but to bring up these very important topics for others to really think about and to put into practice.
Well, that's why we're here. We want people to understand what's going on and see if we can help a little bit. So, bye, everyone.
Bye bye.